morning, super sparkly sapphires. Today is Friday, April 24th, 2020. Mindful positions in 5, 4, 3, 2. Wonderful. Today is the 142nd day of school. Let's write and count 142. It's 100, 4 tens, and 2 ones, so we write 142. Can you point to the part of the number that I'm saying and count with me? 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, 141, 142. Let's review nouns, verbs, and adjectives. You probably remember what a noun is because we have a song about it. It goes like this: person, place or thing, person, place or thing, person, place or thing, and that is what a noun is. I'm a noun, you're a noun, your mom is a noun, and a place noun would be Texas, France, California, the bathroom. Those are place nouns. And then things are basically anything you can think of. Anything you see behind me in this video, anything you see in the room that you're in is a noun also. So a person, a place, or a thing. And yes, that includes animals. So right now, can you name 3 nouns? Now we're going to talk about verbs. Verbs. I'm doing this because a verb is something that you do. Now that doesn't mean it has to be a big movement like running, right? I could be sitting. Right now I am talking. Right now I am breathing. Those are all verbs, things that you do. So it might be something grand like dancing or working out or flying, or it could just be something mellow like sleeping or thinking. Can you name 3 verbs right now? Okay, now we're going to talk about adjectives. And I say adjectives like that because you're describing something. Like you might be going, oh, that's fancy. Ooh, that's exciting. Ooh, that's slippery. So an adjective describes a noun. So if you're talking about ice cream, that's your noun. You might say the ice cream is cold. The ice cream is sweet. The ice cream is sticky. The ice cream is tasty. Those are adjectives. Can you name 3 adjectives right now? The dog ate a yummy treat. So which word in this sentence is a noun? So the dog is the noun. I bet you knew that. So the dog is the thing that we're talking about in this sentence. So what did the dog do? That's right, the dog ate the treat. So eating is the verb. So the dog ate a yummy treat. Now there's another noun in this sentence. Did you already think of it before I told you? What's the other noun in this sentence? The thing that the dog ate. That's right, treat. So treat is also a noun. And there's an adjective that describes that noun. Do you know the adjective that describes the treat and tells you what the treat is like? I bet you said yummy. So the adjective is yummy. That's describing the treat.
So we have our noun, the dog, and the treat. We have ate, which is the verb, the thing that the dog did, and then we have yummy, which is an adjective describing the treat.
Stuart Little, Chapter 9, A Narrow Escape. Margala liked it so well at the Littles' house, she decided to stay for a while instead of returning to the open country. Do you remember Margalo? That's the bird. She and Stuart became fast friends, and as the days passed, it seemed to Stuart that she grew more and more beautiful. He hoped she would never go away from him. One day, when Stuart had recovered from bronchitis, he took his new skates and put on his ski pants and went out to look for an ice pond. He didn't get far. The minute he stepped out into the street, he saw an Irish Terrier. That's a doggy. Oh no. So he had to shinny up an iron gate and jump into a garbage can where he hid in a grove of celery. Here is Stuart hiding in the garbage. It's probably really hard for you to see. It's a teeny tiny picture. While he was there waiting for the dog to go away, a garbage truck from the Department of Sanitation drove up to the curb and two men picked up the can. Stuart felt himself being hoisted high in the air. He peered over the side and saw that in another instant, he and everything in the can would be dumped into the big truck. Oh no. If I jump now, I'll kill myself, thought Stuart. So he ducked back into the can and waited. The men threw the can with a loud bump into the truck where another man grabbed it, turned it upside down, and shook everything out. Stuart landed on his head, buried 2 feet deep in wet, slippery garbage. All around him was garbage, smelling strong. Under him, over him, on all 4 sides of him, garbage. Just an enormous world of garbage and trash and smell. It was a messy spot to be in. Here he is in the garbage. Oh, goodness. He had egg on his trousers, butter on his cap, gravy on his shirt, orange pulp in his ear, and banana peel wrapped around his waist. Still hanging on to his skates, Stuart tried to make his way up to the surface of the garbage, but the footing was bad. He climbed a pile of coffee grounds, but near the top, the grounds gave way under him, and he slid down and landed in a pool of leftover rice pudding. Yuck. I bet I'm going to be sick at my stomach before I get out of this, said Stuart. He was anxious to work his way up to the top of the pile because he was afraid of being squashed by the next can-load of garbage. When at last he did succeed in getting to the surface, tired and smelly, he observed that the truck was not making any more collections, but was rumbling rapidly along. Stuart glanced up at the sun. "We're going east," he said to himself. I wonder what that means. There was no way for him to get out of the truck. The sides were too high. He just had to wait. When the truck arrived at the East River, which borders New York City on the east and which is a rather dirty but useful river, the driver drove out onto the pier, backed up to a garbage scow, and dumped his load. Oh no, that's a boat! Stuart went crashing and slithering along with everything else and hit his head so hard he fainted and lay quite still, as though dead. He lay that way for almost an hour, and when he recovered his senses, he looked about him and saw nothing but water. The scow was being towed out to sea. Oh no, he has fallen onto a garbage boat. Well, thought Stuart, this is about the worst thing that could happen to anybody. I guess this will be my last ride in this world. For he knew that the garbage would be towed 20 miles out and dumped into the Atlantic Ocean. I guess there's nothing I can do about it, he thought hopelessly. I'll just have to sit here bravely and die like a man. But I wish I didn't have to die with egg on my pants and butter on my cap and gravy on my shirt and orange pulp in my ear and banana peel around my middle. The thought of death made Stuart sad, and he began to think of his home and his father and mother and brother and of Margalo and Snowbell and of how he loved them, all but Snowbell, and of what a pleasant place his home was, especially in the early morning with the light just coming in through the curtains and the household stirring and waking. The tears came into his eyes when he realized that he would never see them again. He was still sobbing when a small voice behind him whispered, "Stuart, who do you think it is?" He looked around through his tears, and there, sitting on a Brussels sprout, was Margalo. "Margalo!" cried Stuart. "How did you get here?" "Well," said the bird, "I was looking out the window this morning when you left home, and I happened to see you get dumped into the garbage truck. So I flew out the window and I followed that truck, thinking you might need help." Boy, was she right. "I've never been so glad to see anybody in all my life," said Stuart. "But how are you going to help me?" "I think that if you hang on to my feet," said Margalo, "I can fly you ashore. It's worth trying anyway. How much do you weigh?" 3.5 ounces, said Stuart. "With your clothes on?" asked Margalo. "Certainly," replied Stuart modestly. "Then I believe I can carry you all right." "Suppose I get dizzy," said Stuart. "Don't look down," replied Margalo. "Then you won't get dizzy." "Suppose I get a stomach ache," said Stuart. "Well, you'll just have to be sick," the bird replied. "Anything is better than death." "Well, that's true," Stuart agreed. "Hang on then, we may as well get started." Stuart tucked his skates into his shirt, stepped gingerly onto a tuft of lettuce, and took a firm grip on Margalo's ankles. "All ready," he cried. With a flutter of wings, Margalo rose into the sky, carrying Stuart along, and together they flew out over the ocean and headed toward home. Here is a picture of Stuart hanging on to Margalo's little ankles. And here's a picture of them flying over the city. Trying to go home. "Whew," said Margalo when they were high in the air. "You smell awful, Stuart." "I know I do," he replied gloomily. "I hope it isn't making you feel bad." "Well, I can hardly breathe," she answered, "and my heart is pounding in my breast. Is there something you could drop to make yourself lighter?" "Well, I could drop these ice skates," said Stuart. "Goodness me," the little bird cried. "I didn't know you had skates hidden in your shirt. Toss those heavy skates away quickly, or we will both come down in the ocean and perish." Perish means to die. We definitely don't want that to happen. Stuart threw his skates away and watched them fall down, down, till they disappeared in the gray waves below. "That's better," said Margalo. "Now we're all right. I can already see the towers and chimneys of New York." There's Stuart's skates that he dropped into the water so he would weigh less. 15 minutes later, in they flew through the open window of the Littles' living room and landed on the Boston Fern. Mrs. Little, who had left the window open when she missed Margalo, was glad to see them back, for she was beginning to worry. When she heard what happened and how near she had come to losing her son, she took Stuart in her hand, even though his clothes smelled nasty, and she kissed him. Then she sent him upstairs to take a bath and sent George out to take Stuart's clothes to the cleaner. "What was it like out there in the Atlantic Ocean?" inquired Mr. Little, who had never been very far from home. So Stuart and Margalo told all about the ocean and the gray waves curling with white crests, and the gulls in the sky, and the channel buoys, and the ships, and the tugs, and the wind making a sound in your ears. Mr. Little sighed and said someday he hoped to get away from business long enough to see all those fine things. Everyone thanked Margalo for saving Stuart's life, and at supper time Mrs. Little presented her with a tiny cake which had seeds sprinkled on top. Where does the story take place in chapter 9? Remember, it's a stinky place, the garbage truck. So at the top, you're going to trace setting in a garbage truck. Your vocabulary word is perish. Remember, that means to die. And you are going to draw Stuart in the garbage truck. The bottom, you are going to draw either Margalo rescuing Stuart, so he would be hanging onto her ankles, or you can draw Margalo eating her cake, or if you want to, you can split it down the middle and draw both. And each picture space has lines at the bottom for you to write a sentence telling me what's happening or how someone is feeling or something like that. Remember, don't start with "this is." Don't tell me what it is. Tell me what's happening.